So, what is Minnesota nice? And is it biblical? I mean, I kind of know what it is. I haven't seen a definition. There's probably several of them out there, but I know it has to do with being nice to people to their face when they're around. When they're not around, then all bets are off. And I know that as a Minnesota nice person, if I have an issue with you, Bradley, I will talk to Tom about it. If I have an issue with Tom, I will talk to you, Bradley, about him. I will not talk directly to you if I have things going on that trouble me about you, because that's dangerous. I will talk around and I will talk about. I will not talk directly to or with. That's part of being Minnesota nice. And unfortunately, without realizing it, I learned that really well growing up in southern Minnesota. And so, I guess in this gathering, I could say, hello, my name is Jeff, and I'm a Minnesota niceaholic. And you say, thank you. And now I make my confession. Well, I already did, I guess, tell my story. So, knowing kind of what it is it biblical? I ask because it seems like there's a little of that going on in the text today. After Philip has his encounter with Jesus, where Jesus says, follow me, and actually the Greek is more, be like me, imitate me, be with me, be as me. After that encounter, Philip goes and tracks down his friend Nathanael, we'll call him Nate, and he says, hey, Nate, great news. We found him. We found the guy, you know, the guy that Moses and the prophets all talked about? The promised one, we found him. Yeah. Isn't that great? And Nathanael, who has a little different view of the world and things, says, awesome. So who is he? Do I get to meet him? And Philip says, oh yeah, he's around. His name is Jesus, son of Joseph. He's from Nazareth. And Nate says, perfect. That's perfect, because we all know that all the quality people come out of Nazareth. It seems like a sarcastic sort of throwaway line. But I think it's more than that. I think it's an intentional setup. So, fill in the blank. This is your chance to join in. Fill in the blank in this line. Can anything good come out of blank? And in the blank, you put the name of the scuzziest town or neighborhood or city in the area where you grew up. Can anything good come out of? Yeah. And I could name a bunch of them. I grew up in a little town. There were all these little towns around, and I knew all about them. I knew everybody in those towns and everything about them, and so I knew which ones were good and which ones were bad, right? I mean, that's how Minnesota nice works, I think, and maybe it's just being human. Of course, this is about Jesus. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? It's in reference to Jesus. And Nathanael asks that question even though he's never met Jesus, doesn't know him. At least according to the text. We have no background on that. We think he doesn't know him. And then Jesus shows up. And Jesus, seeing Nathanael, seeming to not have met him before either, says, now here, this is an Israelite who has no hidden agenda at all. He calls him the way he sees him. He is upfront and honest. It's sort of a playful swipe at the Galilean nice that Nathanael just offered up and demonstrated. And it's also a connection to the story of Jacob. Jacob, you may remember, had a reputation for being not so honest. And then he had that time where he's wrestling with the angel, he's wrestling with God, and after that encounter, his name is changed and he becomes Israel. And so this is a reference to that change, the Israelite, the honest one. Well, Nate is sort of blown away by this. And he doesn't quite know what to do with it. And he says, so how do you know me? Have we met? I don't remember you. I would think I would remember meeting you. And Jesus said, I saw you before Philip even called you. You were under the fig tree. Okay. Well, that's sort of weird, isn't it? Well, here again, in the Greek, what Jesus says is, I saw your true nature. The word is onta, and we get ontology and ontological from that word, and it means the true nature of something. Jesus is able to see into another even without encountering that person. And seeing him under the fig tree, in the tradition, the fig tree, well, the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden was said to be a fig tree. And that's why Adam and Eve covered up with fig leaves, because now they know they need to cover up, and they didn't know that before, and there's all kinds of implications to that. So to be under the fig tree is to be seeking knowledge, to be seeking wisdom, to be desiring to see deeply into something, which is exactly what Jesus is able to do. He sees with the eyes of God. So Jesus tells him, you confess this. Nathanael says, kind of goes overboard in reference to Jesus, in response to Jesus seeing, and says, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. You're the one. Obviously, Philip is right. I doubted it, but now I believe it. And Jesus says, well, you haven't seen anything yet, because you will see the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man, which is another one of those weird lines. What do you make of that? It's a link, again, to the story of Jacob. You know the song, Jacob's Ladder? We are climbing Jacob's ladder higher, higher. Well, it's a ladder or it's a ramp, and it's a dream that Jacob has, that he falls asleep, and the messengers of God are coming and going to him from heaven to earth. And he wakes up and says, holy smokes, God is in this place, and I didn't even know it. And he makes a monument of sorts there, and he dedicates the place and calls it Bethel, the house of God. And that's what that is talking about. John is saying Jesus is the living connection between heaven and earth. He is the one who brings them together and makes them one. That's the contention of John's gospel, as Jesus, the incarnate one, the Word made flesh, as well as this very human son of Joseph. And that's why that reference is in there. That this text is rich with their symbols, and there are references that have implications to them, and you can go all kinds of different ways. But the part that surfaces again and again for me all week long is that snarky observation on Nathanael's part. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Well, we know the answer to that. And that challenges us. And it encourages us, especially in this time. So, as we brace for what's going to happen in the next few days around the inauguration of a new president, in reference to what happened a week and a half ago, as we feel the tension in the country, as we see pictures of the destruction and the anger, and as we hear the voices lifting up all kinds of interesting contentions, deeply held beliefs that facts will not dislodge, do you have the sense that this is Nazareth? That we're in Nazareth? Or maybe we put it like this: can anything good come out of Rock Hill, South Carolina? On May 9th, 1961, a bus came into the bus depot in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and two men got off the bus. They were freedom riders, one white, one black. One was named Albert Bigelow, that's the white man, and the young 21-year-old black man was named John Lewis. And they are on their way through the South to sort of witness to the hope of integration, to protest against segregation, voting rights, all of that for black Americans. They get off the bus and they go towards the bus depot to go into the waiting room, which has a sign that says whites only. And they're confronted by a group of white men, vocal, abusive white men. Some of them are Klan members. And as Lewis reaches for the door, one of them, his name is Elwyn Wilson, swings at him and hits him in the face with his fist. And then he swings again and hits him in the side of the head with his fist and knocks Lewis to the ground. The other man, Albert Bigelow, is knocked to the ground, and then everybody joins in beating and kicking them bloody. Elwyn Wilson is a white man, a member of the Ku Klux Klan. That's his home area. And he participates in numerous events and incidents like this. He is filled deeply with hatred for black people, and he acts that out again and again and again and again. Later in his life, as his health is failing, as his concern rises for how is he going to answer if he has to answer for these things in the next life, he realizes he needs to try to make some amends, and his heart has been changed and softened over time. And these memories of the things he did, those have haunted him, and he's tried to push them away, and they won't go away. They just keep impinging on him and changing him and working on him. So when Barack Obama is elected president, he realizes he needs to make amends. And so he makes a public confession and apology of all the things that he's done that appears in the local newspaper. And he's interviewed, and he's on TV, and he's on radio, and he meets with a group of young black civil rights activists in Rock Hill. And he apologizes to them, and it's, by the report, it's a very emotional event. And he begins to put things together. And he didn't know it at the time, but as he does some basic research, he realizes that the man that he beat up 48 years earlier is now a member of the United States Congress. And so he calls John Lewis's office and makes an appointment to meet with him. On the day of that meeting, he drives with his son to Washington, D.C., and he's welcomed into Lewis's office in the Capitol building by Lewis's staff, and then he's welcomed by Lewis himself, and he comes into this inner office space, and after a little bit of small talk and introductions, Elwyn Wilson says, "Mr. Lewis, I am the man who began the assault on you all those years ago at that bus depot in Rock Hill. I am the man that hit you and knocked you down and beat you up. I am the one who did that. I'm the one who started that. And it has bothered me for years, and I am so sorry. And I wonder if you will ever be able to forgive me." Lewis doesn't miss a beat. He says, "I forgive you." And it seems to me it takes a lot of raw courage to come and meet face to face and admit such a thing and seek forgiveness as you're doing, and I admire you for doing it. And it is a testimony to the fact that love is stronger than hate. And the two men embrace, and they cry. Sometime later, Elwyn Wilson, the former Klan member, says he never dreamed that he would ever again see face to face the man that he beat up all those years ago, much less that he would meet with him in his office in the United States Capitol building. And he spoke to other groups, and he was in classrooms talking about what he had done, confessing it, apologizing for it, and inviting others to set their hatred aside while they still had time. And he was harassed by other Klan members who would call him up and tell him he was breaking his vow and that he had no right to do that. But he continued to speak out publicly, and he continued to tell them that while they had the opportunity, they needed to come clean as well. Elwyn Wilson died in 2013, I think. John Lewis died last year. But their meeting, their reconciliation, their witness lives on powerfully. And it is the very thing, that very sort of thing that we lift up and celebrate and reach towards on this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, especially in this time, especially given what has gone on and is going on. Reconciliation, hope, rebuilding the nation, as Susan sang earlier. So, can anything good come from a violent assault on two freedom riders in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which will be 60 years ago this May 9th? Can anything good come from such a thing? Can anything good come from the assassination of a brilliant, young, courageous, articulate black man on the balcony of a motel in Memphis, Tennessee in 1968? Can anything good come from that? Can anything good come out of the slow death of George Floyd? Not at the hands of, but under the knee of a white policeman at the corner of 38th and Chicago in Minneapolis, just a few miles from here, last May 25th, Memorial Day. Can anything good come from that? Can anything good come from what happened on the 6th of January in Washington, D.C., as all the ugliness and the hatred and the lies exploded in violence in the very Capitol building where John Lewis and Elwyn Wilson reconciled? Can anything good come from that? Can anything good come out of Nazareth, that little no place populated by nobodies? We know the answer. We don't know exactly how the good will come, what it will look like when it does, or when it will show up, but we have an idea because we are the people of Jesus Christ. So whenever that good comes, whatever it looks like, may it begin in us. May it sound forth in us. May it live in us. May it speak through us. May it sound like us. May it look like us. May it be us. In Christ. Amen.